Okay, good morning, everyone. So, as I talked about a little bit, I wanted to do a comprehensive little quiz for you all here on Friday, and I wanted to run through the information, just kind of reiterate it for you, just so you have a chance to really think about it. I don't want it to be so much of a hurdle that it suffers makes you suffer any anxiety for it. I want to be able to give you the information in such a way that maybe it encourages you to continue to look into wanting to do more computer science things. Definitely in the sense of art and game art and just things like that. So I am going to go back over the section real quick on the stuff that we talked about. So when I started out the art section, we initially did some things. We went into the colors, and I had you all create some color palettes in the first little section here, the little color section, and when I had you create these color palettes, if you remember, I had you go through. We did a triadic, we did a monochromatic, and then you also did a split complement. And another term I used for these color palettes was color harmonies because with the color harmonies, basically what you're doing is the color itself is generated from actual ones and zeros or code, and whenever you have a palette that you've made that's called a color harmony, right? As you go through your color harmonies, your brain, as it's processing the information of the color harmony itself, uh, going through that, it allows your brain to kind of rest because it can make like a pattern of those ones and zeros for your brain, so it makes it a little bit easier to process the information, and it allows your brain to be able to not have to stress so hard as it takes in this information. So anything that you make that you actually calculate, and you calculate something like a triadic or a or a triadic, a monochromatic, a split complement, even complementary colors, uh, even a quadratic and stuff like that. They're called color harmonies because when you're actually creating something like that, it actually makes it a little bit easier because it allows your brain a little bit of rest because it can actually uh, create a pattern out of that in the sense that it allows you to look at these colors, right? These sets of like this monochromatic here. It allows your brain to kind of rest because it can compress the amount or the data of the ones and zeros that is coming through and everything, and it allows you to kind of go through your brain. Now, all these colors are actually generated off this set value right here of this RGB, and you put three values for RGB because what you're actually doing is you are literally putting in values for your red channel, your green channel, and your blue channel, and that's how a computer can actually generate color because it's using those three color channels, and it's actually doing some what's called primary color mixing, using those three colors. So with red, green, and blue, when it actually mixes all together, you actually get white light, and then if you don't have any light on any of those channels, it gives you black light. So that RGB actually stands for red, green, blue because it's representing the three color channels of primary color mixing when it comes to the way that computers actually generate color. So once we were done with the this section right here, the color section, we started going into the other sections, and they're actually set up in such a way that CMU CS Academy kind of did this progression of three things as we move toward creating game artificial intelligence, right? So we started with patterns. We went to generative art. and then we went to emergent behavior. But going through these steps and processes, it shows you how you can get to game artificial intelligence, or be able to simulate like a game artificial intelligence, right? So in the pattern section, we actually kind of went through this process of creating patterns. And the nice little thing, like I kind of threw like some bonus information in there, but one of my personal favorite artists is um, Maurice. Maurice Cornelius Escher, because with Maurice Cornelius Escher, he did this amazing thing called uh, tessellations. And tessellations are a very awesome thing, because with tessellations, it actually shows how you can kind of mess with patterns in such a way that it creates some cool transitions and everything. He does a lot of things also called like forced perspective and everything, but when it comes to doing pattern making itself, MC Escher has been one of the amazing people of really migrating with tessellations, where it's creating patterns and doing some cool effects and everything. This is one of his famous ones of taking cranes and fish and kind of creating this pattern and everything as it switches from a fish to a crane and vice versa, almost like the effects of a very intricate yin yang to a certain degree. But there's quite a few things that he's done in creating these tessellations and everything. But he's done tons of them. He made them very famous. But his full name is Maurice Cornelius Escher, but most people know him as MC Escher. But yeah, right there, Maurice Cornelius Escher. He made tessellations famous, which is all about this concept of patterns or pattern making, right? So with that, understanding the reason of patterns and everything, the reason that it makes it so much easier to do patterns with computers itself is because computers, or at least computer code, is based off your algorithms, right? Using these algorithms and going through the process of actually looping through given algorithms, so it actually makes it really easy to create patterns. So like you can even look in this code right here, and you see right here that that there's a for loop, there's another for loop, and going through this looping sense, it's really easy to go through iterations and create a pattern, because we can just loop an algorithm and actually create a set pattern to make it really easy going through that whole process. So the next step when we go when we start to move toward our game AI that we're actually trying to create, right, is actually the next step is actually making generative art. And now generative art is something that just kind of magically happens when we start to balance our sense of structure and creating a sense of structure using those patterns and everything, but then adding a little bit of randomization into things, so we can actually kind of do that process of hopefully having the computer make this this nice little happy little accident, as good old Bob Ross used to say, there's this happy little accidents, and even with computers, sometimes we get happy little accidents. Coders actually get happy little accidents. So when we take a balance of some randomization and then being able to create the structured algorithms and everything, and putting in a little bit of randomization, we magically get some generative art out of the thing, and it actually makes some nice stuff happen. So as we ran through this lesson and everything, I showed you a few things like this tree is generative art. We also had this. I also shared some code with you where you made like watercolor splotches and everything, but that's all generative art, because it's just kind of using some randomization with some structure, and it creates some nice little cool happy little accidents as we go through that whole process. So kind of the next step is we went to emergent behavior, And emergent behavior is this phenomenon that happens to where it almost seems like we have artificial intelligence being generated because we're using a lot of randomization with our computer code, and then it makes it almost seem like the computer itself has a mind of its own. So, like, I had you all play a little game that I had created to where you had this star shot acting on its own, and then you also had a drone that you would deploy, and it would actually kind of have a mind of its own because it's based on just kind of randomly going in different directions and everything. But it seems like they're actually thinking by themselves and doing things, which that is that emergent behavior that just kind of happens phenomenally because we're putting a lot of randomization in there to allow it to be able to kind of walk around and do this magical little thing. So if we really think about this, the real reason that it's kind of cool to have this concept of emergent behavior is a lot of things, right? Whenever we're making games, we want the ability for you to be able to kind of run through and make a game in such that every time you run it, something new happens, something different happens, because that a factor of video games itself is we talk about this replayability of video games in a sense that we want you to to want to actually play the game again and again. So every time you execute it, if something new happens, we can actually entice you to want to play the game again and again because something different is happening. You're not just doing the same thing every single time, because monotony is not going to allow you to want to actually replay something. So you want to have a little bit of variance in there, so it actually gives you a chance to really enjoy the different run-throughs of the game itself. And just in that sense of like that little game that you were playing where the star shot seemed to have a mind of its own, the drone seemed to have a mind of its own, it gives a sense of a little bit more realism to the fact that this stuff seems to be acting on its own, and it's not something that's structured and forced to where everything seems to be able to kind of just control itself and do a lot of things. So just having that sense of realism every time you run through, something seems new, and it adds to a lot of replayability. So that was the goal of going through this whole art chapter and everything, to actually show how computers or computer science and code and everything, we can go through using artistic things, but it also helps us create like this sense of game AI as we go through the steps of starting you off with kind of setting up patterns, going through and doing set pattern making, and then going to generative art, and then going to emergent behavior. So I hope you really enjoyed this chapter, and I hope it encourages you to hopefully look into more computer science. But I really enjoyed having these days with you, going through the whole process of kind of what's near and dear to my heart, as far as like balancing the technology side of things, computer science, and the art side of things, the fact that I love to illustrate and draw and stuff like that. So I hope you all have a great day. Hope you do awesome on the test, so we can get another grade in the grade book there for you. But I will see you all soon when I get a chance to jump into the class. Have a great morning.